one of the most pivotal points of the Battle of Gettysburg from July the 2nd. This is the peach orchard. And Joseph Cheffrey was a fruit dealer who lived and owned a farm here, which is right over here. And his barn, you can see part of it. I think that could be the barn way down in the bottom of the hill. It burned during the battle and trapped a bunch of wounded soldiers inside, and ultimately they died. But this is the peach orchard. And this is infamous because of Sickles. Sickles was, like we said before, he gained rank through being a politician. He didn't know really anything about military strategy, in my opinion. He knew a little bit, but he was just not very good, to say the least.
Union Major General Daniel Edgar Sickles was one of perhaps the most controversial figures in the Gettysburg story. He was born in New York City in 1819 and studied law at New York University. He entered the realm of politics and became a member of the Tammany wing of the Democratic Party. Later, he became a New York State Senator and served in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1857 until 1861. He also had gained national news in 1859 for shooting and killing his wife's lover, Philip Bartram Key II, who was none other than the son of Francis Scott Key, the composer of the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. During the murder trial, Sickles' defense attorney, Edwin M. Stanton, gained an acquittal on the grounds of temporary insanity, and it was the first successful use of the defense in the American legal history. At the start of the Civil War, Sickles offered his services to the Lincoln administration, and he obtained the commission as a colonel of the 70th New York Infantry in June of 1861. Authorized to recruit a regiment of infantry for the war, he enlisted enough men for a brigade of 5 regiments and received an appointment as a brigade general of volunteers in September of 1861. His 5 regiments became known as the New York Elsier Brigade. He led his brigade on the Virginia Peninsula in late spring and early summer of 1862 at Seven Pines and during the 7 Days battles, and he commanded the division at Antietam and Fredericksburg. He was promoted to Major General in November 1862, and he commanded the 3rd Corps at Chancellorsville and Gettysburg. Seriously wounded on July 2nd at Gettysburg at the Sherfy Farm, Sickles suffered the amputation of his right leg, thus ending his active field service. In 1864, Sickles instigated the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War's investigations into Meade's conduct during the Gettysburg battle, accusing the general of desiring to retreat from Gettysburg rather than stand and fight. He never gave up his crusade among his commanding officer, and in time was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions at Gettysburg. Sickles was again elected to Congress and served from 1893 to 1895, during which time he drafted legislation that established Gettysburg National Military Park. Sickles was the longtime chairman of the New York State Monuments Commission until he was forced out in 1912 in the midst of a financial scandal. Sickles died at his residence in New York City in May of 1914 at the age of 94 and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery.
Sickles decided that the orchard's elevation would provide better room for his artillery and also allow him to meet any enemy attempts to outflank him. Well, he was wrong. Without orders from General Meade, without being told to do something, which is a big no-no you do not do, Sickles pushed forward. He moved 11,000 men of the 3rd Corps through this field during the early afternoon, and he had not enough soldiers to even man the whole entire new line. Sickles' line included a sharp right angle or assailant at the peach orchard. The position was therefore vulnerable from attack from enemy positions. General Charles Graham's brigade was primarily responsible for defending the peach orchard and needed support from other units. Union Artillery Chief Henry Hunt placed a substantial line of artillery batteries along the Wheatfield Road in an attempt to close the gap between the peach orchard and the wheat field, which is right in this area.
I rode out to the extreme left to await the arrival of the 5th Corps and to post it, when I found that Major General Sickles, commanding the 3rd Corps, not fully apprehending the instructions in regard to the position to be occupied, had advanced, or rather was in the act of advancing, his corps some half-mile or three-quarters of a mile in front of the line of the Second Corps, on the prolongation of which was designed his corps should rest. Having found Major General Sickles, I was explaining to him that he was too far in advance, and discussing with him the propriety of withdrawing, when the enemy opened on him with several batteries in his front and on his flank, and immediately brought forward columns of infantry and made a most vigorous assault. Major General George Meade, Army of the Potomac.
So Sickles was, to say the least, kind of a idiot, in my opinion. He did something that you just do not do. And the Yankee defenders came up under intense artillery fire before the infantry attack began, and Confederate artillerist Colonel E.P. Alexander considered this some of the hottest cannon fire of the entire war. So this whole field was lit on fire by artillery. The Union regiments were initially clustered along the Wheatfield Road and Emmitsburg Road intersection, but eventually moved into the southern end of the orchard, marked by the line of monuments there. So here there are monuments at the end here that are lining it. And I don't know if you can really see them on screen. But anyway, sometime around 6 p.m., Mississippi Fire Eater General William Barksdale was ordered to attack the peach orchard, and Barksdale had about 1,600 men hit the Yankees head on, and he broke a hole in the line that sent Graham's men stumbling in retreat. General Graham was captured. Colonel Alexander rolled his Confederate batteries in here and destroyed the remnants of Meade's army. But he was shocked to discover that this was only an advance line and that Meade still had plenty of troops further up on Cemetery Ridge. The Confederates held this position through July the 3rd and used their artillery fire from here to support Pickett's charge. So there you go. It's just a little rough rundown. Not the best in the world. It's a complex subject. But a lot of people get confused, and I even got confused for a long time, about the wheat field and the peach orchard. It's almost one and the same. And you can see the barn behind me, the farm where Sickles actually lost a leg, and the Confederates were coming from this way. And this was basically an area of the McGillivray artillery. So you can imagine this whole field just being strewn with artillery fire. Okay, so as we're setting off, this is the artillery line and monument line that was here. So we did find it. We wasn't really in the correct location. But we're going to turn around. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you at the next one. Alright, so it is cold and windy, so I'm not going to get out like I told you.
So as you can tell, it is extremely windy here on the peach orchard, and this is basically the artillery statue here at the peach orchard you're looking at, and it's on the knoll. So this knoll is what kind of sets this off as a strategic point, and I think that's what Sickles was looking at. But there's an observation tower on the other side next to Seminary Ridge where the Confederates attacked across. You can visit that today. We did it because it was so windy. But let's continue on our trek and go to the Sherfy Farm.
Okay, so where we're standing right now is close to the peach orchard, close to the wheat fields, and close to where Sickles decided that he wanted that little salient. What it is basically some angles, and Sickles was not a very light guy for what he did, because he went against orders. He was not on the right place on the field. His flanks were exposed. He had gaps in his lines. It was a big ordeal. But this is a Sickles home, or excuse me, this is a Cheffrey house, and this was close to all the action that was going on between the wheat field, the peach orchard, and then on July 3rd, if you'll notice the high water mark is right down a little bit. I don't think you can see it from here, but it is not far. But all of these Confederate forces were behind the Cheffrey house, and they pushed across the field behind here. So on July the 2nd and July the 3rd, during the, as what we know as Pickett's Charge, against the Union lines, this is where all these men are going to come from. It's from this wood line behind this house and out in the fields surrounding this house. So a pretty cool little place. It does still have some battle damage, but we can't get around to it. But it's on, a lot of it's on the left side of the house here that I've noticed what appears to be bullet strikes and different things. But this was also the position where the Zouaves, or the 114th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry, Collis's Zouaves, made their charge and stand against the Confederate forces here in Gettysburg on July the 2nd, and probably also some on July the 3rd. But this is a pretty neat place to actually see in person. So along with the 114th, you also had the 57th Pennsylvania Veteran Volunteers of the 1st Brigade, 1st Division, 3rd Corps, that were right here near the Cheffrey house. And they were basically on the right side. Think of it like this. The 114th is on the left, and then the 57th Pennsylvania Volunteers Monument is on the right. And then you have these right flank markers here. So this was their right flank, and this is kind of their view during the battles here at Gettysburg.
The Sherfy Farm was complete devastation after the battle. Many victims lay in the yard dead, along with dead horses, and the original barn had been burnt down with Confederate wounded still inside. Charred bodies of those victims lay all across the ground. The Cheffreys had their belongings strung into the mud outside in the yard, and their house had been ransacked. 7 artillery strikes hit the home. Bullets riddled the home itself. The Cheffreys took years to recover after the battle. You can see more of this and the home itself on the History Underground's YouTube channel. Give him a like, share, and subscribe.
But I do want to mention the Pennsylvania and the Minnesota troops that was here in the foreground. Now, why are we driving around? Because we just don't have a lot of time today. So we're not going to get out and actually look at everything. But the Pennsylvania and Minnesota troops, the Minnesota troops lost a lot of their men here on their gallant counterattack charge. They basically told them, go out, give them everything you got. We've got to take this ground back. So these Minnesota troops of the 1st Regiment of Minnesota Volunteers, who are one of the first regiments ever put into place during the American Civil War for Minnesota, made their gallant charge through this field. And this was basically an order from them, for them, that meant death. And this occurred July the 2nd, 1863. This is their view, and their fixed bayonets charged down this little slope into the wheat field. And yeah, it was not a good sight. So the 1st Minnesota Monument, as you can see to my left, is where the point that these men charged from. And when they charged this field, it was basically an order of death. These men, if you can imagine, the field still looks much as the same as it did in July the 2nd, 1863. These men fixed bayonets, charged across this field, and they lost 83% of their men. General Meade said, hey, we've got to take this ground. You guys have to charge. I know you're tired. I know you're worn out. You've lost a lot of men, but we've got to do this. So it was really the Minnesota men in my opinion, who won the day here during the July the 2nd battle. Now, in doing that, of course, half their regiment was now gone, but you also had men like Pennsylvania. And this is a monument, basically, as you can see on the front, Meade, Reynolds. These were Pennsylvania men. And these were the men who made the stand here at Gettysburg and helped save Gettysburg. And then you have these batteries around this area. You know, this is the battery of ANJ. So this is New Jersey, I think. Yeah, this is New Jersey. This is Hesmer's New Jersey Battery. It was commanded by Augustine Parsons. And he really, as you can tell, he's got pretty much a high ground here behind the other artillery that's here. So these guys are firing out here. You have, you know, Pennsylvania artillery here of the Independent Corps firing out. And then you have artillery dotting this position, trying to hold back the Confederates that's coming across this field. So what we have here is the Trossel Farm. And this is where Sickles, during the Battle of the Peach Orchard, is going to be wounded. He had his leg shot off by a cannonball fragment on the side of the home. Now this is the barn. The home is behind me. But I think it was on the side of the barn, if I'm not mistaken. But we did find us a nice little stream here. Pretty cool. But as you can imagine, there's fighting raging all around this farm. And because this is basically an area of the wheat field and also of the peach orchard. So all those areas are right here where we stand now, for the most part, and the same, you know, kind of general fields. And this is some of the bloodiest fighting of the American Civil War. And here at Gettysburg is right here. And there's a photograph of the Trossel Farm, that is very famous. And it is, I'm gonna try to put a picture up right here, but it's taken somewhere from this angle with this tree over here in it. But I can't get it all the way across for the angle because of this little creek, and it is so wet out here right now. But this is the Trossel Farm. So here's another view of the Trossel house itself, and the car's going off here. But just reminding you, this is where Sickles had his leg blown off by a cannonball. And he did return to Gettysburg years later after the battle of, you know, that he had fought here and after his injury. But yeah, this is where Sickles was. And just look at the ground behind this farm, littered with rock. Pretty neat. During Gettysburg, it was littered with dead. Okay, so this is a little bit about the peach orchard, and I am by far no expert. I'm sure in some of these videos I've probably given some information that's not correct. I hope I haven't, but it does happen. You do get confused. Gettysburg's a complex subject, but we're going to head now, check out the wheat field, we're going to check out the rose farm, then we're going to dive into day 3 of Gettysburg with Pickett's charge. There's a whole list of other things you could get into with this, but Gettysburg is just so complex. So we're going to head on, go to the next spot, we'll see you there.